Welcome back to the Drummer Mindset Podcast, Episode 7. Drumming is Ritual with Poppy DeBoer. Poppy is a therapist in Asheville, North Carolina, and also a doom metal drummer. We discuss Poppy's unique approach to playing the drums. We also discuss ritual. We discuss some on music theory and its history, and the history of ancient religions, specifically paganism and drumming in its practice. So this is a very unusual one. It's very interesting. Poppy is a very open individual, very intelligent, and I always love our conversations. So I think you'll enjoy this one. All right, have a good day.
It starts for me in adolescence. I wanted to be a rock star. My parents, bless them, bought me like a cheap drum kit from a local pawn shop. It was called Space Percussion or something like that. And set it up in my basement bedroom and just beat the crap out of that thing.
What were you listening to?
Metal, yeah. So I was playing along with Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I took a few months of lessons at the local guitar shop, learned some of the basics, but after that, I just went off on my own, started playing with other high schoolers.
And where was this?
Chicago. I grew up in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like Chicago would probably have a lot of resources in as far as like musicians and artists.
Yeah. I mean, I was almost always in a band. It was rare that I wasn't.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was initially like, I found like it was an outlet for rage, you know, just all this pain and rage I had as a teenager, just to beat the shit out of this kit in celebration, you know.
Right.
And there was something that I heard in music, you know, and something that's lasted for me as a drummer, you know, particularly with John Bonham. But for me, like, a good drummer is listening to the spirit of the song.
Okay.
And trying to feed that spirit and bring the song alive.
Okay.
Bonham was excellent at that.
Yeah.
You know, chops aside, and then some of the other drummers too, there's a way in which you can find the rhythm of the riffs and play that and accent that, but then there's something that just brings it to life too when you're adding texture or a counterpoint or something.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think kept me really engaged, was just listening, like, how do these drummers bring the song to life?
I love that perspective. So many times I've thought about kind of supporting the music. And it's been one of those mindset things for me, I think, like, that doesn't sit well with me, but it's also just what I've heard it described as. The way that you describe it is like breathing life into the music and not just supporting it, like, excites me to think about it in those terms.
Yeah. I'll go to a show, and of course, one of the first things I watch is the drummer and listen to the drummer. And many of them are just playing the drums. But every now and then there's something that, you know, feels more special or more alive to me, where they're playing the song and they're playing the people in the room also. Like, that's something that I learned more about, you know. So another part of my history is playing djembe or dundun or cowbell at these all-night pagan bonfires, you know. Huge bonfires, people dancing, drumming.
When did that start for you?
97.
Okay.
I want to say. Yeah.
So you're into adulthood at that point.
Yeah, I was in my 20s.
And were you still in like Illinois? Or?
I was still in Chicago,
Okay.
yeah, but found these festivals over in New England.
Okay.
There's one that was called the Starwood Festival that was in Western New York.
Okay.
So it completely flipped my perspective, where the drummers are there to make the dancers move, right? You know, and Starwood itself is like the gladiator pits. I mean, it's like hundreds of people, drummers like next to each other, wall of sound, the whole circle just whoom, 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 you know, so powerful, but also madness, you know, it's hard to like cut through.
Right.
But it was so ecstatic. I'm like, this is awesome. I am definitely coming back. I'm finding more of these. So then a few years later, I decide I'm going to take an African dance class and get out from behind the drum and do some dancing.
Okay.
Awkward. I was horrible at it. I was in the class that's full of dance majors. So of course I feel extra like nervous and awkward, you know? So specifically one day, you know, normally there's a drummer or two drummers, they're playing, we're learning the moves and dancing across the rooms, you know, and you're moving, you know, you're going a direction with these dances. We're not just in place, you know, shaking your booty. So one day, like 4 or 5 drummers show up and the room is just like, gra, 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 gra. And as we're dancing, I could literally feel the drums carry me across the room. And I was like, oh, this is the whole point. Like I'm supposed to be moved and carried by this rhythm, by this energy. Right. So that flipped again my perspective as a drummer at the pagan festivals. And then I brought that back to being a metal drummer. So it was more about aggression and, you know, bringing the song to life. But that African dance class and drumming around bonfires, I was like, oh, I'm here to move people. This is an ecstatic experience, whether it's doom metal or it's, you know, playing Dune at these fire circles. This is ecstasy and this is primal and I'm here to move people and move energy. Okay. So it really shifted my perspective.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the kit, was there... you know, definitely there's the spiritual aspect I definitely want to get into, but the technical aspect. Okay. What was there anything there that you started realizing, or was it more of just the concepts and the motivation?
I did at one point. This was a little before I found the pagan festivals. I started playing with some friends who were more hippies, you know, into like more, I don't know, complex, nuanced music. So I started taking some jazz lessons. Okay. And I sucked at it, but it did help me soften my playing, to learn to play around what was happening rather than just driving it like a freight train right through the middle. Yeah. So on the technical side, that helped me too. Again, just a few months because I'm stubborn and don't want to be told what to do. But it softened my playing and broadened my perspective as far as how I could bring life to a song. Okay.
And then spiritually, like to this point, how would you, if you know, because it sounds like it's definitely a big part of who you are, at least as a drummer. Oh yeah. And probably in general. But like where, like spiritually, did you identify with any specific religion or spirituality before you ventured into these drum circles?
I grew up Christian, rejected that throughout adolescence. You know, did a lot of unwiring of some of the really negative messages that come along with it, unfortunately.
That takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's scary mixed, too. Right?
Yeah.
You know, like this hell stuff, like what an awful story to tell people. Right. You're going to suffer for eternity. It's terrible. Like, why would you do that to people? You know, I was traumatized by that. Right. So it was through these pagan festivals where I'm also during the day, like going to workshops on like shamanism and Reiki and stuff like that. Okay. And hanging out with these people in Chicago who introduced me to the pagan festivals. They were Hermeticists. Hermeticism is a Western European magical tradition, ritual tradition, and they were Wiccan. They kind of mixed the two. Wiccan, like more earth-based
Gotcha.
nature spirituality.
So it sounds like even through all that, like you're like this what I call like an openness to whatever, to like this higher consciousness. Like sounds like you never really lost that, or was there a period?
But I think I was missing that sense of something larger than myself, and then found it, through these folks and these festivals. A whole new world, of like earth spirituality, of being in touch with natural forces, of like trying to talk about the spirit that's, within everything. Through these festivals, I'm encountering these spiritual paths and religions where drumming is fundamental to it. Like shamanic practice, people drum or rattle, go into trance, work with these spirits to do healing for people. It's of service. And West African Ifa, which through the slave trade became Santeria. Voodoo is a close neighbor of Ifa. And at the core are public rituals, very specific rhythms and very specific songs that call in the spirits to then possess people and do healing for the other people who have come to gather, to heal them, to bless them, to help them, and so rhythm and song and dance are at the core of human tradition.
The community, especially with West Africa, where so much of this comes from, and I had a little bit more formal training, starting, was attracted to drums because of rock and roll, right? And wanting to play that, and then also being interested in the kids in my school that were in the jazz band, and just being amazed by the way that they could play. As soon as I got a drum kit, like a percussion plus kit, it was like lessons until I pretty much graduated from high school, right?
Wow, nice.
And so I would study with the head these polyrhythms, and I was fascinated by them. Absolutely, like the samba and so many of those other polyrhythms that were just like mind-blowing to me, but not really understanding what it came from, and just recently finding out, like, because it is a communal experience, and it's because like everyone's involved and so many people are lending their drumming or their voice to it, it creates these natural polyrhythms that go on that then become, that then people internalize, and then much like you've kind of recreated in the way that you've kind of gone through it, that's what the kit's about. As an innovation from that more European perspective of the study and all that, and the marching band, and now we have not just 5 people that are playing these instruments, but one person that's playing these instruments, and then the one person trying to like channel this polyrhythm of a community out of them.
Nice.
You were taking the African dance.
Yeah, that was in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you go to college for?
I started as studying creative writing. Okay. And thought I wanted to be a writer. About halfway through, I realized I really wasn't actually that good.
Okay.
My voice wasn't that unique. I was playing in a punk band, bass this time. I was playing in a punk band with a guy in the writing program, and this guy was like possessed to write. I mean, he just wrote novel after novel after novel. I only knew him for like a year, 2 years, something like that. And so, yeah, like realizing that my voice wasn't that unique and that I wasn't on fire in the way that this guy, Joe Mino, was.
Okay.
I just kind of gave it up and stopped college and went off to do like community organizing and try some different things. And then I found my way to these folks who introduced me to the pagan festivals. Gotcha. And then it progressed from there.
And did you go to college like right after high school?
No, I dropped out of high school, same thing, stubborn, didn't like being told what to do. So I started college probably a year or two behind what would be considered normal. Got it. Like 19 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, took a break in the middle. I ended up going back to get the bachelor's degree. I just had this funny feeling. I was like, I'm going to need that piece of paper for something.
Right.
I don't know what, but I'll need it. So I went back and took like the one math class my art school he said you had to take, and you have to take one history class, and
And did it serve you, getting that piece of paper?
Yeah, because I landed here in Asheville and was like working for really shit wages, and people had always told me I should be a psychologist or a therapist or something. And I was like, whatever.
Just like friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they could just confide in you.
People just tell you stuff all the time. People would like just open up to me and tell me stuff they'd never told anyone before. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was working for really poor wages here in Asheville, and then a graduate school opened up right here for counseling.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is what I need that piece of paper for.
Okay.
So I applied and got in, the inaugural class, and ended up getting a master's in counseling. I found myself drawn to the healing arts. These folks, these pagan folks, they taught acupuncture and deep tissue massage. And so I studied massage with them, became a massage therapist. I'm like taking Reiki workshops at these pagan festivals, studying shamanic healing with some friends of the pagan folks in Chicago. And so I felt drawn to the healing arts, but on the periphery, I wasn't so comfortable nestling myself that deep in society. I ended up 2003 when I graduated from college, I ended up giving away all my stuff, and then traveling the country in a van, going to pagan festivals all over the country. Then I sold the van and lived out of a backpack for a while.
Wow.
So yeah, it wasn't until I was back here in Asheville, and which was actually, I came here in 2006, then I left for a while and traveled again, met my partner, got married, and we came back to Asheville. And that's when I started rooting in. It's like, wait a minute, if I'm going to root down, I actually might need a career.
Okay.
And then the grad school opens up.
Uh-huh. And so when you were living out of a backpack and everything, did you have a drum with you, or how did you think about it in those,
I had a djembe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. To play at the pagan festivals,
Sure.
but then actually ended up getting rid of that too, and would just play what was there.
Yeah.
I landed in Boston for a little while, Jamaica Plain.
Yeah.
And hooked up with a pagan goth band.
Okay.
And then toured with them in a blue school bus that ran on veggie oil around the country, going to different pagan festivals and stuff. So I had sold my drum set when I left Chicago.
Sounds like a real adventure,
but I kept playing.
like all of it. And and so much of it also, driven by an ethic or a spiritual perspective.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freedom. That's how I view therapy, is liberation work, liberating people from their self-critical negative minds, helping liberate them from their resistance or their blocks, and that's not a huge jump over to music too, just the liberation and freedom of, expression and community and just being together and celebrating, it's like, it feels like liberation work to me. Music drives, activist movements. It drives, the civil rights movement.
Right.
Music is like a huge part of that. That liberation.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love. I think people get maybe scared of metal, and I go to a metal show, it's like a sea of black leather, frowning faces, tattoos, but everybody's there to celebrate.
Right.
It's a joyful experience. I just went to a show last night of one of my favorite bands called Yob.
Oh yeah. They played here.
Yeah.
I heard it. You had introduced me to that band.
So good.
Yeah.
It's like church.
There's this naturalistic component to, I don't know, maybe it was just from hearing about it from you, but I've not done the deep dive as much, but just in what I've heard, there's something very natural about what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mystical too. Yeah. There's a lot of texture. There's a lot of, spiritual messages. The lyrics are very, philosophical, spiritual. Their website is yobislove.com, so they're aware of what they're doing. So you would think, or people maybe assume it's going to be like a scary experience all about, rage or anger or hurting each other. And there are some shows that are like that. If you go to a Slayer concert and go in the pit, you're going to come out bloody, But here, and particularly in the doom metal scene, like it's about celebration. It's about, I think, like the integration of rage and love. People smiling. If there's a mosh pit, somebody goes down, they get picked up, or checked on. Are you okay? Random people last night coming up to me. I'm dancing, to the music. Like, you've got great energy. Can I dance next to you? Yeah, hell yeah.
Nice.
Just, yeah, it's a beautiful experience.
Nice. Any blocks that you found as far as musically that are most obvious to you, maybe right now or from your past?
I think my stubbornness is a block. I think I could be a lot more proficient if I practiced, if I took more lessons, or studied or trained or something, but I just don't. Discipline is not my forte.
Okay.
So that's one. I think the other block has been more so in just finding people who are on the same vibe with me. I've tried to get some bands going the last few years, and the people are great. They're cool, but there's just like something that's missing, whether it's like a level of competence or a level of like awareness of how energy moves through a song, or there's just no like fire that's kindled by the interaction of people.
Yeah.
So I think that's like one of the difficulties for me is like just finding the right people, which is true of anyone,
Right.
like if you're into marriage, trying to find somebody to marry, or if,
Right.
finding friends or finding community,
Sure.
So that's been a block along the way too, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, to find like where you're aesthetic, but also just like you're saying, like you can get that sense, that feeling too when it's there.
Yeah. There's one guy, we played together in my first high school band called Cheerio Head.
Okay.
His name's Adam. He's like, one of my best friends. We've played in bands together throughout the years. Freakalicious Alien Booty is another one.
I listened to that.
Cool.
I loved, like, I think I listened to all the recordings that you sent.
Okay.
I loved it. Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He came to Asheville also.
Oh,
like he and his family moved to Asheville years ago around the same time.
Okay.
And some other friends of ours too. A bunch of us moved here to start. Part of the point was to start a doom metal band that was also a ritual band. Like we went in with the attitude that this music is ritual.
Okay.
What does each song do? Like this first song, in a ritual, one of the first things you do is you salute the spirits and you like create the space as a safe container for the ritual to happen. Like in Catholic Church, they swing all the incense and stuff.
Sure.
In indigenous ceremonies to these lands, they might smudge or sage the space to cleanse it.
And that all is, those are all pagan rituals to begin with, I believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, our first song is like to clear the space and protect it and make it sacred. Then we're going to do a song where, we believe that people are walking around with these negative entities attached to them. And so we're going to like try and remove these entities from people that are fucking up their lives and giving them negative thoughts and suicidal impulses and stuff, So each song had a ritual purpose. We had like an oil can altar in the middle of the stage with a big goat skull on it and candles and shit. It was really, really powerful. It's one of my favorite bands I've ever been in. So Adam, my friend, was in that band.
Now this is a different band than the bus that you rode around.
Yeah.
That was powered by vegetable.
That was somebody else's band.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that Adam was in that band. And then we played again together years later in another doom metal band called Radiant Beings of Light. And we just kind of like move in and out of each other's lives at different times. Like he and his family moved to Portland for a few years. And I was like, I guess I'll never play music with Adam again, even though I knew better, because then they moved back, and I'm like, come on, bro, what are you doing? Let's play music. So, I'm spoiled in a way just to have somebody that I've known for like 30 years and played music together. We can read each other so well and our musical tastes are so aligned. But I'm trying to like get them back in for this next one.
You ever consider like file sharing or anything like that? Like as far as like making music remotely with people?
I've thought about it. It doesn't hit that, that juice for
Totally.
me. Like, it's cool as a creative exercise. I've made tons of music over the years, with home recording studios and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't have that like live communal juice.
Where are you right now with your musical journey?
I am at a crossroads. Me and my partner sold our house in June, traveled the country with our kids, bought 30 acres in Barnardsville, and want to start this retreat center. Meanwhile, my music equipment is in storage.
Yeah.
I want to play with some people. I want to build some kind of studio on the land, but I think we're going to need like a shower house and stuff first,
Sure.
So I found some guys on Craigslist, we're playing some stoner rock. But it's just not quite there.
And you're playing with them right now.
Yeah.
But your drums are in storage. But
yeah, we're going to this cool local spot called Sound Space that Claude, the drummer from Ween, started. Yeah, it's a nice little thing,
It's a great spot.
Yeah, super useful. So we just been renting that by the hour.
Okay.
There's already a kit there. They bring their guitars and basses and amps and stuff. There's a PA. So we've been playing. But, it's been like 8 practices or something, and we kind of have one song partially written.
Okay.
I'm just like, I don't think this is working out, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what you're used to. Maybe I'm an asshole, but so I got to figure out how to tell them in a nice way.
Yeah. Do you maybe you're an asshole?
I don't know. Like sometimes I just feel like really, really clear on what I like. I feel really clear on what I don't like. I feel really clear on what I think works, what I'm there to do, and I don't know. I have high standards, but I've also been told I'm kind of rigid at times. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Like musically, you're rigid.
No, in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you have a specific way of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm autistic too. I learned that a few years ago, and that was like hugely revelatory to me to learn that. And I think it's,
of course,
that special interest that like, no, it's got to be this way. Some of the rigidity. I am more adaptable and flexible than I think a lot of autistic people.
Right.
But I can be real hardline focused on stuff too.
Yeah. Neurodivergence. They're like these different kinds of disorders, as we've studied.
Disorders.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And it really so often comes down to adaptation and what we're adapted to. And I think that I try to look at everything, or most things, or at least ask the question, what's the evolutionary perspective on this piece, right?
Okay.
After studying so much about these disorders and stuff. And the ADHD piece makes so much sense from a hunter-gatherer mentality perspective, right? Because you have to divide your attention among so many things. Like you're constantly foraging if you're out in the woods. You have to like break through that green wall of the forest to be able to see your resources, right? And to know what's dangerous and what's not dangerous, where to look for sign for different game or whatever it is, and how to process that game, how to make the tools to process it, how to make the tools to bring big game down, how to work with people, use oral traditions to trade information, to learn. And then you, at some point in our evolution or in our story, like you give people a piece of paper in a small room with no windows and say, this is how you learn now, right? It would drive anyone mad.
Yeah. Now you stand at this register and press buttons as people buy things from you all day long.
Exactly. And the way that you talk about it too, like with the drums kind of like breathing life into the song. And so many other folks also have kind of talked about like corralling people. Like you had talked about kind of weaving in and out, like making space for people, maybe kind of reflecting an idea on someone else. But in so many ways, like the band relies on you. As you had said before, like there's a lot of power in the drums.
Totally. You can't have a weak drummer.
Right.
You might be able to get away with like a weak bass player or a weak guitarist, but like you can't survive a weak drummer.
Right.
It's not going to work.
Right. And so it is kind of this shepherding piece, who's also a hunter, So, in thinking about like all those models, what you also described to me, and I'm not doubting your diagnosis at all, like this, I think it's been very helpful for a lot of people to think about autism on a spectrum, because it can just teach you something about yourself but also the ways that you describe like those pieces, I just also tend to think artist.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, and you're in. It sounds like you're in tune with what your taste is and like what you like, and you stand by that. It's so important, I think, as an artist to like be able to weather any critic or resistance from how your art comes out.
Yeah. It's one of the benefits of having a strong ego. In other ways, maybe it doesn't serve us so well, and it can be helpful to learn some flexibility and adaptability. But yeah, just having a very strong sense of self can really serve as an artist, for sure, because you go places that other people don't tend to find themselves.
Right.
You go into the shadows, you go into new lands, go on adventures.
Yeah.
And then you bring back treasures.
And it sounds like throughout your life, like you've had these, like you're no stranger to that adventure. Like it sounds like
I had to have it. I don't know if I'm ADHD too, but I'm like, I can't do this like boring industrial, normal school to career pipeline. Fuck this shit. So I got to get out of here.
So it wasn't as much like a choice. You just felt like driven.
Yeah.
Like you had to.
I had to get out. Yeah. That's what was so cool about finding, the metal scene. Is like when I was first playing music, for high school kids, just playing weird shit. It's got funk in it. It's got grunge. It's got metal. It's got just like haunting melodies. We didn't know what we were doing. And like what was most popular? Hair metal. So we're like going to these clubs and playing with bands called like Cutlass and Enough's Enough and stuff like that, and like
so familiar.
All these like, they're like a really big Chicago hair metal band.
Okay.
Yeah. And their girlfriends are like, oh my God, don't you guys have any rowdies? As we're like humping our stuff up the stairs to the, so we've totally felt out of place too. Then we found the punk scene. And we weren't punk, but there's just such like an acceptance, and a sense of community there. Like we found our niche, started playing with punk bands, opening up for bands from Seattle and California, Seaweed, the Voodoo Glow Skulls, and so, just like first finding that culture, like, oh, like I belong here, what was presented to me throughout, grade school, junior high, high school, none of that fit. I didn't belong. I thought something was wrong with me, but then I found, this like punk and metal scene. Then I found the pagan scene. I was like, oh, there are cultures where I fit and where I belong. It's not just a rejection and feeling lost and like I'm the problem, but now I've found what does work for me, so that was part of it too.
That discomfort and that friction is such an important part of growth, right? Like
it is, but it's so fucking uncomfortable, It
just kind of reminded me, I think in the sober community, people talk about the gift of hitting bottom early,
Yeah.
If they're just young and they hit a bottom so early, they can push off of the floor, right, pretty quickly, as opposed to just kind of dragging along, right? And sometimes we think about, keeping a stiff upper lip or just making do or just keeping your head down and pushing through as being kind of a moral perspective and something that's ideal. And so, you learn to weather a lot of frustration and discomfort and things like that. But rarely it's harder to make change happen out of that too, right?
True. And one of the things that we're missing in our culture that I've experienced in other cultures is initiation rites, which are tied to community, to drumming, to song, to music, What
do those look like?
So it's a much longer story than I can tell, but basically like I was having dreams as I'm like opening up, going to these pagan festivals and stuff. I'm having dreams where these African spirits are coming to me. I find out they're part of this African tradition called Ifa. It's from Nigeria. So they're calling to me. I'm meeting people that I only dreamed about. They're practicing this religion. So I eventually end up going to Nigeria and going through this 8-day initiation ceremony. So initiation is not something that we have in our culture anymore. You know, it's like maybe you turn 21, they take you out to the bar and get you shit-faced drunk, or maybe you get your driver's license or something, but there's no initiation ritual. Initiation ritual does like a number of different things. Like it pushes you into extreme discomfort. Like it's really physically challenging. I'm not allowed to talk about what happened in it, but I can talk broadly about it. It's very, very challenging physically, emotionally, psychologically. You get pushed. It's the discomfort, you know. There's ritual, there's song, and there's a part of you that they're trying to awaken. There's part of you they're trying to awaken and align with the spiritual forces that particular tradition is in touch with.
Okay.
With whatever the tradition is, there's an alignment with those spiritual forces. It's also a communal experience. Like you're being welcomed into the community of initiates. You know, you're being welcomed as an adult, maybe, if in the tradition it's a pubescent rite of passage type thing. So there are a lot of ways in which I think initiation rites, we're missing them. We're doing it ourselves in some ways by hitting bottom with drugs or alcohol. You know, I did it in some ways by casting myself out of mainstream society and, you know, traveling all over the country, having adventures. But yeah, I think it's something that we're missing. And so we're seeking it in some workable or not so workable ways. I think it's one of the aspects of our culture that has been destroyed, that we're missing.
I was thinking about like, where is it left, you know, and like mine, like, where is that initiation left? And then like immediately I just went to like, cause I grew up, you know, in a Baptist church.
Yeah.
Right? So
baptism.
it's like baptism.
I think our rituals have become tepid, you know, like anything that becomes really, really popular or grows to become worldwide loses its richness. You know, whether we're talking about a small business that becomes a giant corporation, you know, or Christianity started as these small pockets of like political activists, you know, and then it grew and got co-opted and became this world dominant religion, you know, and so I think a lot of it became vanilla and like missed that real primal, in touch with the earth, in touch with aliveness type juice, you know. And Christianity also went around and destroyed, obliterated so many ancestral indigenous practices, you know, for so many of us. It's gone forever.
So yeah, I'm finding some threads here, like people's story with, you know, art and life, and you know, it's just fascinating to me. Like the initiation, that's like something I need to explore more of. There's different ways that I've experienced it, right? Like in my own life. And it always felt, I never really understood the spiritual perspective of it, or like what it, you know, it's like, it was always just kind of, you know, thrown up as like, oh, well, you get through this, you'll get through anything. And then, you know, we've always got your back kind of a thing. Like I was thinking immediately, like when I was working as a river guide, you know, there were some initiation type experiences that were just made to make you feel uncomfortable, but no real, like, no spiritual aspect or no reason given behind it.
Yeah, no purpose.
Right. No intention.
Yeah. I remember one of the guys saying to me, as I was going through it, he's like, now your life will become much better. I was like, cool, thank you, because this shit is hard.
How old were you when that happened?
It wasn't so long ago. It was in 2016. I finally made it over there. Yeah.
Gotcha. I have pretty much zero experience and knowledge about this world, right? But I had this massage therapist not long ago, a few years ago. And it was, I mean, just doing tons of mountain biking, right? And like lifting a lot of weights and doing all that kind of stuff. And so like physically speaking, musculoskeletally, there was a lot of things that were going on. But then when I came to find out, like it was the most incredible massages I would have, but also I felt so centered. And I also knew like she would use bells, like as a part of, she was like, are you okay with bells?
Cool.
I'm like, I'm open to that. Absolutely. Like, and I found that it was so centering. And And of course, my skeptical mind's like, what megahertz is this bell at? Like, what's the vibration rate of this bell? Like, what's tuning in to my eardrum, right? Like, wanting to know the details of it. But then later and then I soon after that found a meditation practice that was working for me.
Cool.
And so I would go into these sessions and find that I could so easily slip into this meditative state.
Wow.
And feel so balanced after. And it wasn't just musculoskeletally. But this was also a person that had been trained in these other arts like Reiki and things like that, and was doing a lot of energy work. But the presence of this person, but how I contextualized it at that point, it was like, oh, this is not magic. This person is paying attention. Like they are like, whatever it is, they're not like me trying to overthink. Like what is this vibration? What's happening here? What's going on with this person? But there was almost like this perspective, like this feeling, like they knew. It was a level of empathy that almost felt like mind reading, but it wasn't. And what the sense was, and after talking with her a little bit more about her perspective on these things and whatnot, I was like, is it just that you just have like really just paying so close attention to what's going on in any given moment? Like, is that what helps you? She's like,
yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, same with drumming, like paying attention, being present, I don't know if this happens to you, but like if I'm drumming, my monkey mind can start going, and just start talking about stuff or analyzing stuff, criticizing stuff. But if I just bring it back to like what I'm feeling, what's happening on the drums, not thinking about what I'm playing, but just playing, and we can feel like I can feel, as we're writing songs, is this flowing? Where does it need to go? Is the song coming alive? When we're playing that song live, how are people reacting? Oh, the energy dropped right here when we played it with people. We need to do something else to like raise the energy in this part, And so, yes, it's paying attention and it's empathy and it's feeling. And from there, I think you learn how to more effectively move energy. That's what we're doing with sound. We're pushing sound waves, creating vibrations to move people, to move energy, to move their feelings.
Did you ever study like music theory or anything like that?
I did. I took one music theory class so I could talk with the other musicians about what was happening.
Anything kind of align with how you talk about moving energy?
No, not at all. It was totally like white intellectual European approach to it, circle of fifths and, that kind of stuff.
There's a book I read recently called Dillatime. But so Jay Dilla was this music producer back in like the 90s, and I guess he died in early 2000s. The author though kind of brought to mind this musicology perspective of like music theory, right? And the reason we have like 7 notes before we hit the same representation, like 8 notes, on that 8th note, was just a decision, almost arbitrary, in France somewhere. Like we have octaves now because that's what they decided, right? And
other cultures have other scales with more tones in them.
European sense, if you're thinking about things in octaves, or you're counting things in one or like 2 or 3 time, and then you hear Indian music or Chinese music or African music, and you're hearing like everything else. You're like, this is not music. This sounds weird to my ear, and how that was used as a justification for demolishing those cultures.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Because it didn't resonate.
It's unholy.
Right. But then goes on to talk about, slaves coming here, and like taking those instruments. They came up with techniques to be able to replicate notes in between the keys.
Interesting.
So like the specific technique is the pull off, right? So like you would hit 2 notes at once, and then you drag your fingers one after the other, not like a flam, but like the same idea.
Okay.
Like one leads the other a little bit, and it kind of gives you a note in between.
Wow.
And so it's just amazing to me, like the amount of friction that those people experience, those humans like being owned, you know, and being able to explore and still like survive, essentially. Like I've heard stories about the cajon. Never been a huge cajon fan until I learned more about the history of it. It's like all drums were taken away from these folks that were like carrying these like fruit baskets around in boxes. So they took the drums, so they just started playing these boxes. You know, it's just like finds a way. Like the genius finds a way. Like the spirit finds a way. Like, it's fascinating to me.
I mean, they brought the spirits with them too, you know, in those relationships. And it became so many different religious traditions. Santeria, Umbanda, Candomblé, you know, all up and down the coast of North and South America that are rooted in music and song and drumming and in communal celebration.
Yeah. And I guess what Dilla was known for, I think in my mind at this point, it was that he took a drum machine that was quantized, right? Like it was like very even.
Yeah.
Like you got music
Took
on a
the
grid.
soul out of it.
Right. Like, and so the machine kind of took the soul out of it, but at the same time, it was something that was so accessible to start producing music.
Right.
But he was able, like, he would take apart machines and he would figure out ways and he would drag. So he's known for that push-pull feeling between the bass drum and snare drum.
Nice.
There might be something equal going on, but it's almost like he put the soul back into the machine. Right?
Very cool.
Yeah. If we were to think about time as a drummer in straight time and swing time, then they you know, what their suggestion is there's also Dilla time, somewhere in between fully straight and fully swung, you know?
Yeah.
So,
it's alive.
And the grid is not easy. It's not a pattern that's easily identifiable, you know?
Yeah. I found that the kind of music that's like quantized, like on grid, whether it's industrial music, don't like it.
Yeah.
Black metal that's just like don't like it.
Right.
Like there's no sex in it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no like
Right. There's no give and take, right? Like there's not a dance to it. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I've not messed with quantization of like my own rhythms and stuff, but I know like it just becomes sanitary. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I've produced electronic music, what I'll typically do is find a drum lick like they did in classic hip hop and then sample that drum beat, maybe layer another one over top of it. So it's electronic and it's repetitive, but it's still fundamentally sourced in real live drumming. As far as, you know, talking about like paying attention and energy and just a lot of things we've been talking about, that's what Rick Rubin says that he does, you know, like this guy who has produced so many bands who really helped hip hop birth itself.
Right.
He doesn't know anything about music. He doesn't know anything about twiddling knobs in the recording studio, but he's a meditator. And he said he just really deeply listens and feels what the music does inside of him and then tries to encourage people how to follow that.
I just finished a podcast with him today. Yeah, I think he's got a new book out too.
Oh,
Maybe
cool.
talks a bit about those kinds of things. But yeah, it's fascinating. Like just someone that's in the room that doesn't have that music production background or music theory or any of that stuff, that will just have conversation and for, you know, share ideas. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, based on just listening and presence and empathy. How does this move me?
Awesome. Really good conversation.
Definitely.
Well, what's next for you?
I'd love to do live music. You know, I'd love to build like some kind of rehearsal studio space. It's in the distance, but that's the intention.
Yeah.
I'd love to play music here. You know, I just met a bass player at the Yob show last night.
Nice.
So I'm, you know, and there's a nice personal connection. So I'm hoping to play with him and see maybe if there's something more alive there.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely missing just drumming with people, you know, playing Doom.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Poppy. Well, I guess we'll close it here, but I really appreciate you coming over and sharing.
Yeah, I've loved it. Yeah,
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.